Hey, good morning, everybody. I hope you had a good weekend. Today, I'm going to do a quick demo of how to complete the shooting object that's going to be in your obstacle course game. So this is in the book as well, but I also will attach the scripts necessary onto the Canvas lesson so that you can access them and be able to have an object in a prefab that launches something at the player to prevent them. So I'm going to do a really quick demo. This is the prefab right here. I'm just going to show you kind of what it looks like when you actually go into the scene and what should happen. So you can see I've got my player here, everything's moving. And then I have my launching object, which is right here. So I'm going to avoid my capsule. So what'll happen is when I get hit, I should go back to the beginning and it should run all of those, um, the same functions as any other obstacle that's in the game. Now you can see a couple of things that are happening over here, which is that when it launches the projectile after a certain amount of space, it's going to delete it. So that way it's not overrunning your computer with just projectiles that are kind of going into infinite space. So again, you can see here that this is what kills the player, and it's basically the same hazard script that's on one of these objects right here that's going to stop you. Okay, so when we go into prefab mode, you can see I kind of just place these randomly on the screen. But when we're in prefab mode, what you're going to notice is that I have my object, which is right here. So this is the general structure. And if you're following the textbook, what you're looking at is again some of the containers that are holding these objects. So you've got this sort of general container. This is what is has the shooting script that's going to spawn the projectile, which is right there. You can see that I have a base, and then I have this barrel here, which is what the object or this projectile is going to launch from. And then I've located its transform somewhere in the center. You can see the coordinates right here. Okay, and then I also, if I go into my prefabs, I have this projectile, which is just a basic sphere. There's nothing really special about it other than I have the trigger on the collider, and I have this projectile script on here as well as the hazard script. But excuse me, I have two different things that I can that'll be having on these scripts. So I'm going to show you the scripts really quickly. Once you've set up the objects, though, the scripts aren't really anything too complicated. One of them is just moving forward as a transform. You just have to access um, the hazard script to destroy it. And then the other one is just a basic hazard script, which you've already done for the other obstacles. So when I go into my scripts, the first thing as I'm just going to show you the shooting script, which is right here. So when you look at this script, which again is attached on Canvas, you're going to see that it has the spawn point, and then it's going to be looking for a game object, which is the projectile prefab, which is what we're creating. You can see that we have our floats, which are our times, and then basically it's saying that if your time is greater than that, it's going to respawn the object each time right here. So you have this sort of general time script that's going to create the projectile. Now, again, this is just creating the spawn point. This isn't actually launching the object. So this is what's going to go on your launching object or your shooting object. Once we go to the projectile itself, this is what's actually going to make this projectile move in the scene. Okay, so let me try it again. And while it's loading, I'm not sure what's happening with that, but you can see the same thing here. You've got its spawn point. Um, it's going to put that position, the spawn point, right where it is located on the spawn point. And then this is going to be similar to what we saw with our games. It's going to move the transform by this speed. And then if it gets to a certain point, then it's going to, and you can see this range is 70. If it gets to that point, then it's going to destroy that game object, which is right there. There it goes. Okay, so a few other things too. For this particular project, you're looking at the a lot of the tool tips and the headers just to keep things organized. but this is what's going to be going onto the projectile. So when you look at, again, if you go to the prefabs, and I can just show you a quick example. When you're in our prefabs, I'm going to go to the shooter object. And you can see again when I attach that shooting script to it, this is where it spawns, which is right here. So you could drag that transform into this spot right there. And then the projectile you could take from your other prefabs and drag into here. When I go into the projectile, I have two scripts where you have the hazard script, which I've already got. You will, by default, when you make a projectile, you're going to have a sphere collider. Just make sure you click is triggered so the hazard script will work. And then you also have this projectile script, which is going to create that object. You can see here that I could change the range. Like if I needed it to be less, I could. That would make things maybe a little bit cleaner depending on the type of map that you have. But for there, you can kind of start with it. So those are the basics of adding this. And again, I can show you if I take in this shooting prefab right here. The nice thing is the book has kind of gone into a lot of rotations for this, but I'm going to just put it over here so it's easy to kind of test and see. Um, and so if I were to rotate it, like let's say I wanted to rotate it more like this, then that spawn point is going to rotate with it. So I'll just show you really quickly what it should look like when it fires. And again, you can always adjust the variables, but there it goes. And that is the advantage of making like once you finish the object and you get it to work in the hierarchy here, you want to just have it in your prefabs folder. You can always change an individual one once it's in the scene, but you just want to make sure again that it um that you put it in the prefabs folder because you never know if you need it. And so you can see I just drug it in. Once I got it to work once in the scene, I put it in my prefabs folder and now I can add it to several different levels and I can kind of just show you that too. So if I go to my other scenes, once I've built everything out, then I can just add, this is a scene I'm working on. I can just add these objects. I can just add my player again. I can just create the level now instead of having to go through and make everything again. So the prefabs can be super helpful as you're building. So I hope that this was helpful for you. The shooting obstacles are really a pretty big part of designing games like this. So this is something that you can reuse quite a lot in future games if you want. You can always change a few variables up. But I hope this was helpful and I hope you have a good rest of your day.